My name's Marykate, and today I'll be sharing some preliminary findings regarding data culture in California's Early Start program. So, Part C of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA for short, is a federal entitlement program designed to help infants and toddlers with or at risk for developmental disabilities access evidence-based services. It's monitored by the Department of Education, which allocates funding in the form of block grants to states who wish to participate. Broadly speaking, the purpose of the program is to address the unique needs of this population with the intent to reduce future costs by minimizing the need for special education and other support services while really maximizing independent living. While it is a federal program, it is locally designed and implemented by individual states. So California is participating in the Part C program and has named its version the Early Start program. California's Department of Developmental Services, or DDS, manages implementation and federal reporting requirements. For California to remain in compliance with the federal law and to continue receiving that block grant, DDS submits an annual report to the Federal Department of Education, detailing its adherence to certain criteria. There are about 11 indicators that DOE looks for each year. Some examples would be, did the program provide services in the natural environment? Were children assessed, set up with an individualized plan, and then receive access to services within 45 days of contact, etc. So California's Early Start program consists of a state agency, that's DDS here, which oversees and has established contracts with 21 independent nonprofit regional centers, who in turn contract services out to a lot of vendors. These vendors provide EI services and conduct assessments. They can be independent practitioners, entire agencies, or anything in between. In fact, there are likely several people in this room who have contracted with our local regional center to provide services. Regional centers are the case coordinators in this construct and are responsible for conducting eligibility assessments, identifying necessary services for a family, and then pairing them with appropriate vendors. To meet federal reporting requirements, the data needs to be gathered from all of these groups. And as you may be able to guess, that's probably easier said than done. There are a lot of moving parts here, and every player on this grid operates as an individual entity. How one regional center operates may not be the same as another. For a family to participate in California's Early Start program, a child must be assessed by a regional center and meet eligibility criteria by displaying a 33% delay in one or more of these areas. It's really important to remember here that assessments are only conducted to determine eligibility for the program. Assessments are not diagnostic. They do not diagnose any developmental disability. In fact, you do not need to have a developmental disability to be eligible. So California, unfortunately, has been failing to meet federal standards for Part C implementation since 2006. Why this is happening is really poorly understood, and there's been little to no research in the California Early Start program. So I think this shows a clear need for better understanding and examination of this essential program. And so this project I'll be talking about today is exploratory and examines the data systems and data culture of California's Part C program. So some things that I wanted to know and think about are, how are key players in California's Part C delivery system collecting and using data? What systems are being used? And are these systems well received, or is there an openness for change? So to do this, I conducted 5 semi-structured interviews with 6 research participants early this year. Participants included 3 representatives from DDS and 1 participant from each of 3 separate regional centers. Regional centers were categorized into high, mid, and low performing regional centers through review of their most recent performance assessment. So for this project, regional centers were non-compliant with roughly 8%, 42%, and 93% of federal indicators assessed during their last review. So some things that came from these interviews, 2 databases were identified as central to the Early Start program. You see SANDIS and the Early Start report, neither of which are connected to each other in any capacity. SANDIS, which you'll see on the left here, is intended to be used by regional centers for day-to-day operations, but it's completely inaccessible to DDS for federal reporting. The Early Start report, which is this item on the right, is used primarily by DDS for pulling data for its annual federal reporting requirements. But unfortunately, it serves little to no function for the regional centers in their day-to-day operations. Data housed within each of these programs requires manual input from the regional centers, and there's no process within either of these systems to ensure completeness or accuracy. Thus, information is entered in frequently and is not considered to be complete or of high quality. So regional centers face the challenge of filling the gaps between systems in order to meet their day-to-day needs. At least 13 additional programs were reported across both groups, so DDS and those 3 regional centers, for filling those gaps. The most noteworthy item here being the on-site visit. So due to the inconsistencies in data format and availability across the system, DDS collects most of its information through year-round on-site reviews. Due to the time and expense required to conduct an on-site review, each regional center is assessed only once every 3 years. This makes any quality improvement effort extremely difficult to implement. So regional centers varied highly in how they approached patching those gaps as well. The higher performing regional center had the benefit of a really robust IT department who developed a series of sophisticated programs and queries to kind of reach across all of their data systems. The mid-performing regional center had some IT support, however, the programs they used for patching were really outdated. They are exploring some innovative approaches with their local education agencies to think of ways to fill those gaps, but it's not quite there yet. And the lower performing regional center did not report a dedicated IT support staff and had fewer programs available for patching the gaps, namely using items such as Excel and paper logs. Overall, there was a strong agreement from all participants that existing data collection and usage practices were not conducive to meeting the needs of the Early Start program. Many participants expressed a strong interest in wanting to incorporate data more often into their daily practice, but simply did not have the tools to make the existing systems work without substantial and expensive IT support. Many participants expressed a strong, a DDS representative, actually, was also facing a lot of struggles internally. They described a weeks-long process of piecing together through multiple sources and requests to respond to one data request. They also described the existing system as a reactive one and would really like a new way to resolve these issues so they can be more proactive in their effort and really be on top of quality improvement efforts. So when we're thinking about next steps and where to go from here, I really believe this delivery system needs more research, specifically focusing in on funding structures and organizational anatomy of the program. It would be ideal to include perspectives from all regional centers, especially given the diversity of our state. Comparing California's delivery model to those of other states could be helpful if there is a strong consideration for change. Connecticut is, I know it's small, but hear me out. Connecticut is one example of a state that's running this program especially well. They utilize a centralized database and intake process, and then referrals are transmitted to the family's local center where services are set up pretty quickly. While DDS cannot require a regional center to use any particular database over another, by tailoring the system to meet both DDS and regional center needs, we can expect an increase in meaningful data entry, and over time we can anticipate a way to really look at who are we serving, but more importantly, who are we leaving out, and what steps can we take to reach those families. So some limitations of this study, there are quite a few. Regional center participants included management level staff only. Future projects could really gain benefit from seeking input from alternative viewpoints, such as frontline workers, those service coordinators, the vendors. I'm sure they all have different experiences that are worth examining. And this is a very large system that we're talking about. These interviews barely scratch the surface. I would anticipate that future projects would discover even more programs being used to patch those gaps between Sandus and the Early Start report. I had the wonderful opportunity this year to work with some really incredible and brilliant individuals, and this is just a small number of people I would really like to thank for their time and support. Thank you.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was created in 1998 with a promise to find cures for neurodevelopmental disorders. Every day, our physicians and researchers come closer to fulfilling that promise. Their groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other brain disorders are helping children achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website to find out more about current studies, upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.